Hey guys, welcome back to Buffering Syndrome. I'm Eric. So we mentioned in our last video that we are working on another playthrough, another discussions minus the roundtable. We're going to go GTA 5. Still working on that, just trying to coordinate everyone's schedule between myself, DJ, and Greg. But in the meantime, I figured it was time for another VS breakdown. The Alien Covenant one seemed to turn out okay, so we thought we'd try another one. And I thought with less than a month now, it's April in like an hour, less than a month until Avengers Infinity War. So I thought let's look at my favorite movie out of the MCU. Although I say that Black Panther is making a run for it. It's fantastic. But my favorite movie right now in the MCU, and that is Captain America Winter Soldier. So I figured for this breakdown, as we did with the first BS breakdown, we compared Alien Covenant as to where it stood with the original Alien. In this case, we're going to look at Captain America's arc as a character. So we're going to take a look at the first Avenger, the first team-up in the Avengers, and then his return in his sequel in Winter Soldier, and just kind of look at that arc through there. I'm going to disregard Ultron and Civil War for now. We may do a piece on Civil War later, but we're still deciding that. So I got my notes, so we're going to get started, and let's see how this goes. So we'll start with Captain America, the first Avenger. Alright, so getting into this Captain America breakdown, we're obviously going to start with the first Avenger. You knew it was coming. It's his debut in the MCU. It's the origin story that we have to start with in a breakdown. Unlike, the Alien series where there's not a character origin story, it was more of a concept that they're tying into. In this case, we're going to focus on the character arc. Don't judge me when I look at it. I have notes because I've watched way too many Marvel movies. They're all running together. But yeah, so obviously we're going to start with part of the transition. I think would be the time period you saw between, obviously with Avengers and Winter Soldier. That's modern day. Modern Consequences 2012, 2014. Now, granted, this came out in 2011, the first Avenger, but it was World War II. Which, by the way, does work as a war movie for putting it in marathons. But that's beside the point. So you obviously have that whole aspect. You have the obvious conflict as opposed to later the Avengers with an alien invasion. An obvious conflict, but not one they saw coming. And Winter Soldier, the enemy from within, the spy. That obviously unseen enemy. Same premises apply. But they start off with a bang. I mean, he's forced to deal with his arch nemesis in the comics, is Red Skull, and that's who they put him up against in the very first film. The organization Hydra, which clearly lives on, bypasses Avengers and goes into Winter Soldier. I think if I were to include Civil War, I'd make it more of a Bucky story arc, who's my personal favorite character. Prevalent in this until his death. Obviously bypassing Avengers, coming back in Winter Soldier, which I just had on this afternoon, so we'll see much of it's triggering. But since he's not in the Avengers, it's more of Cap dealing with things. I won't touch on Bucky as much as my notes apparently wanted me to. I think the key part from him is that his character didn't change. I think the biggest part, I'm going to stand up just for a second. His biggest part is that he went from being that scrawny kid, even getting bigger, stronger, essentially gaining power, although it took a while. The power really doesn't come until the Avengers, but he never changed who he was, and I don't think anyone who's forced in that situation can say that, so I think that was pretty impressive. He's one of the few people in the film to see the entire big picture of what's going on. He sees that throughout even with Civil War. Sometimes it's a little skewed. It's his big picture, but that comes into play in Civil War, both the comics and the movie. We'll get to that, but he tends to see the bigger picture, what he sees as the bigger picture. I think there was a good quote that applies to him is that he's not a perfect soldier, but a good man. And I think that's always what he's striving to be. I mean, he enjoys being a soldier, obviously, but he's just probably the best person with, at least morality-wise, of anyone in the group in the Avengers moving forward, even in his group. I mean, he got his not band of brothers, I don't want to take that trademark, but he got his group together, and they just all bought into what he was saying, so I think his leadership held strong. Obviously, once you can't be the leader as that scrawny kid that he was. Just nobody's going to take you seriously, they're not going to listen to you. But once you have the size, and especially once you show you can do in battle, which he demonstrated several times, they're going to listen to you and they're going to follow you. And I think he gets that added layer of motivation, not just for country and for himself, and even for the Doc that dies pretty early on, but when he thinks Bucky's dead. That sort of turned the tide, that sort of then made him, he just had that extra layer, like, alright, I'm doing this for him. And then the very end, the self-sacrifice, again, touching on the selflessness, he didn't hesitate. I mean, maybe he knew there was no other way, whatever, but to sacrifice himself like that, obviously not knowing you're going to land in ice. But then I think the ending is the key part. I believe it's a post-credits scene, but after he wakes in 2011, he's running down the street and Fury chases him. But even before that, when he's in that hospital room and he hears the series, and he's basically like, no, I was at that series. What year is it? He's just smart, and he he's unaware, and he has trust issues. Obviously, you're going to when you wake up 70 years later, which again come more into play in Winter Soldier. He still can grab the concept of his purpose. He knows why he's there. He knows what he's there for, which we'll get into very shortly. But the opening of the Avengers, he's just in that gym boxing away, just waiting for his mission, because that's what he's there for. He kind of lost his purpose, or not his purpose, but he lost his place. But he always knows there's a purpose. So I think what's good about this particular arc is that you know what you're getting from the start. The sides he chooses in upcoming battles and who he wants to defend and who he aligns himself with and even who he feels like he has the right to argue with varies on where he judges himself and judges others. But you can't really judge his morality through that. I think he's just always that good man, that good soldier, and he's looking to help the greater cause. And in the Avengers, he's ready to be that leader. The only one who really knows true battle in a military form, aside from Thor, I suppose, that can take on this sort of thing. So I just think it works well, and we'll get into how he's able to mesh into modern times in just a moment. Alright, so moving on from First Avenger to the Avengers. Again, I have my notes, bear with me. Not all of them pertain to a Captain America breakdown. Some are just notes I made of the movie and going back, I don't know what the hell I was doing. So it's his second, as the character, it's his second foray into the MCU, second appearance. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. But this one you take, obviously, the core of it is him being thrown into modern society. I mean, the first time you see him in this, he's literally breaking down the punching bags. He's just got one after another. Chris Evans even said for that film he had to get into a darker place. That's probably the one moment where the darkness sort of shines. That doesn't make sense, but you get my point. Because the rest, it's him trying to still put country first and put the team first. And I think that's another factor is we see him as another part of a team. And eventually the leader of that team, I think. I know Iron Man tries, but in the streets of New York, Cap's the one giving the orders. He's the soldier. He gets it. We saw part of him in a team in the first Avenger, but that was more of a, hey, I saved these guys. Hey, they want to come fight with me. This is the crew. It's people I trust. Let's do this. In this one, it's S.H.I.E.L.D. Nick Fury had already put together a team of the heroes that they needed, with Thor obviously showing up at some point. It was more of, hey, be thrown in, work with these guys. That's it. So that leads into some trust issues. You also see hints of the anger issues with the punching bag scene and just some others. But I think the trust issue's key. He comes at it with Stark. He thinks he's too flamboyant, too self-serving, can't be a soldier, which Stark doesn't argue. He doesn't think he needs to be a soldier. That argument happens several times, actually, in the movie. There's also the arguments with Fury when he finds out S.H.I.E.L.D. was building weapons. That comes up again in Winter Soldier, which we'll get into in more detail, as that will be the focal point of this video. But he's never... Not that he was shy before he, became Captain America when he was that scrawny kid. I don't think there's really anything standing in his way, and I also feel like he doesn't need to... He knows who he is. He doesn't need to... In the first Avenger, he still felt like he needed to prove himself to the military, to the world. He was a joke in those propaganda videos. He obviously doesn't need to do that. He's a legend by the time he wakes up. So I think he's sort of dealing with that at the same time. And I just think, who would have thought that the man frozen in time for so long is fighting an alien army in the streets of modern New York. I don't think that ever he has a moment to have that digest within him, that's what it came down to, at least not in the moment. But I'll admit, I'm pretty sure in watching these, I didn't see Captain America, the first Avenger, in theaters. I did see the Avengers. I'm pretty sure I saw the Avengers before Cap. That was the only one that was out of order, I think. And I liked everything I saw in the character, but obviously I didn't see the origin story. So, going back and forth, just checking if anything else is there. Real quick, there is a nice callback to the first one when he obviously goes into Germany as people are being punished under Loki. Him and Stark go in and deal with that, and there's just that sense of, hey, I've been here before. He even openly admits that. So, tiny bit of nostalgia. And I also think playing into that whole thing with, spoiler alert, with Coulson's death. He even says to Stark first time he lost a soldier, but that's not how Stark sees it. It was losing a friend. But I think the key thing to take away is that he may disagree with Stark. He may disagree with even Banner at times, Widow, a lot of them. But when push came to shove, like when legit he's about to fight Iron Man, they're getting at it back and forth. The bombs go off, and it's just, put on the suit, let's go. And from then on out, the conflict between those two dissipated, doesn't really get picked back up until, hints at it at Ultron subtly, but it builds, obviously, Civil War being the culmination, which we're not going to get into. But I think I just admire that even in, he doesn't know when he is. How can he? You miss 70-some years of your life. But he's still willing to go team, country, honor first, and just be the hero. And I think that's great that he didn't get bogged down in what he lost, but is really just trying to focus on what he can still save. And I think that brings us full circle to Winter Soldier, which we'll get into now. Alright, and now on to the heart of the video, which hopefully is longer than the rest. We'll see. Got my notes again. And that is my favorite MCU movie so far, Captain America the Winter Soldier. Black Panther's a close second, and Infinity War's probably the top of everything, so we'll see. So this concluded an unofficial trilogy for Cap, obviously. They're all connected and they all go one after the other. When you put the first Avenger, the Avengers, and Winter Soldier together, it's a trilogy. It's a more personal story. He is still coming to terms with his life, as you see in the beginning where he first meets Sam. He has that notebook of everything he's missed in the past and everything he needs to try. But it's sort of a slower opening because there's not that ungodly world conflict that you have with the Avengers. I think the thing that sticks out most to me in this movie, and I think why it works, is like The Dark Knight. While that was a terrific superhero movie, it was also a crime drama. Pretty much broad. This one is a spy thriller. It's a spy thriller as a superhero movie, or a superhero movie disguised as a spy thriller. You have some great sequences of action with the elevator scene and just the whole Hydra infiltrating S.H.I.E.L.D. and turning on everyone. It's fantastic. A really nice callback to the first Captain America when they find Toby Jones's character from the first one as the computer voice from, well, I shouldn't say from, but technically as a lingering remnants of Hydra as he was built into the servers and could still see and communicate. It plays on the trust, or the mistrust that we had post-Avengers. He doesn't trust Fury. I mean, rarely do any of them really do that. He learns not to trust Pierce, the people that called him in, as it turns out he's the one running the Winter Soldier, and I think the key part is he starts to not trust himself when he realizes his best friend, who he thought had been dead for 70 years, is actually a world-renowned assassin. Not to mention, his neighbor that he thought he had a chance with turns out to be an undercover agent. So that'll mess with your head. There's, like I said, there's corruption. I think there's a key point is that when they're building the weapons, the helicarriers, they're arming them and they're going up. But when he first sees it with Fury, he says a good line that's not freedom, that's fear. The fact that the country and the government is so willing to put up a deterrent as to eliminate threats before they happen, it's a very fine line to walk before you're eliminating everything. Because there's always going to be, unfortunately, with human nature, there's always going to be that fear of what they could become and what they could do. But to tell them, just shut it all down completely before it even starts by killing millions of people, seems a bit rash. Side note, dipping back into the other characters, you get more of Black Widow, as her and Cap go on the run, fugitive sort of thing. You get Falcon. As I said, they have that great scene with Jasper Sitwell when they have him on the roof, and Cap threatens to throw him off, and he's like, that's not your style, is it? You're right, but she'll do it. Widow knocks him off, Falcon flies up and, scares him half to death. You also get the debut, or technically origin story of Crossbones, as it's Rumal, but as Frank Grillo's character, gets charred in the ashes as a helicopter plane comes through the tower. But I just think it leaves a lingering impact, and it's sort of a surprise that then, with Ultron and even Civil War, that there's almost still a resemblance of what the government could be or how they could still control them. I honestly think if you tried hard enough, I guess excluding Ultron for a second because that was Stark and Banner's, program. They had built something that just became over the top. But I think it's more along the lines of, in Civil War, when the general shows up and they're still trying to govern these heroes. If I'm Cap, I don't blame him for not wanting to do it. I mean, in the one organization you've known since you've woken up, our enemy, the world's enemy, had been infiltrated from underneath, and the most highest levels of government have come through. So, if you're a hero, how can you let the government, control you and tell you which way to go when you can't trust them for shit? So, again, that's getting too much into Civil War. That might come back into play prior to Infinity War. We'll see. But I just wanted to end this on Winter Soldier, and I'll end by saying this: that Bucky Barnes is my favorite character in the MCU. I like his story arc as, homegrown best friend, thought was killed in World War II, brainwashed, comes back as the assassin, and then obviously slowly working on being turned through Civil War, and then you saw what he was at the end of Black Panther. Spoilers, sorry. But I think this movie does the most of any to show Cap's true character. Even Sam's character. I mean, Sam has really been the same since he showed up. He hasn't really changed. Widow's different than when she was in Iron Man 2 when she first showed up. But this is the Cap you're going to get moving forward. Civil War becoming more... Ultron becoming... He's about the same, I'd say. Civil War more jaded because now he's turning on some other friends. And in hiding by Infinity War. So, see, maybe post-Infinity War there's a way we can bring this back in and see if the changes here really impacted what he became later. But as for that, sorry for the, I feel like I rushed, but that's the rundown there of the Winter Soldier. And, yeah, thanks for watching. That was our breakdown, going through the first Avengers, Winter Soldier. Hope it stuck, hope you liked it, related, feel free to comment and say it sucked. That's what the internet's for. Fewer things in the works. Again, the GTA playthrough, we're just trying to get everyone in front of the damn PlayStation. Also, an idea came to me to have another BS breakdown for Psycho, the original thriller horror from Alfred Hitchcock. I had some ideas on that one. As also, BS Legitimacy, we're going to start defending horribly rotten movies. Idle Hands, Jumanji are on the list. We'll see what else we got. But until then, again, hope you enjoyed our breakdown of The Winter Soldier. I'm Eric for Buffering Syndrome. Eric?
Oh, hey there. So I don't know where my brother went, but since I'm here, I should tell you guys about my YouTube channel. I don't know if you know this, but I actually have my own channel where I just record and upload PS4 footage. So if you're into watching gameplay, mostly Dark Souls stuff, feel free to check out my channel. The link will be in the description below. I'm gonna go find my brother.